listening to Rescue Community Church. For more information, check us out at www.rescue.cc. And this week, I'm going to talk about words and how words really can make a difference in your life. One word can change the course of what you do in life, how you feel about life, how you feel about the people around you. Words change things. And so I don't know about you, but if you know anything about me, I love to talk. It's probably one of my favorite things. I love it. I love to chat. I could talk forever. My husband says he can't, when we go to girls' night out, he's like, what on earth could you talk about for that long? Like, what are you doing for that long? When you talk on the phone, I can talk on the phone with my mom. It could be a simple, I have to ask her something, and 45 minutes later, the kitchen is clean, and I don't even know what we've talked about, but it's 45 minutes later. I love to talk. It's my favorite. I love chatting. And my favorite is my husband doesn't like to talk really at all. He's not a chatter in the least. So my favorite time is when we drive to Pittsburgh, because it's 3.5 hours, and he has to listen to me chat. He has to hear it. He talks back, but sometimes he's just like, sure, great, yeah. And quite frankly, I don't know about you ladies, and this could just be me, but I think sure is like the worst word ever. I hate it. I hate fine too. Fine. When Tom says, or when someone just texts me the word sure, I'm like, are they like sure or sure or sure? I hate that word. So, or when Tom says, I ask him, hey, do you like this? Do you like what I'm wearing? He's like, yeah, it's fine. I'm like, that's not acceptable. 17 years later, fine is not an acceptable word ever. We can't use it. Sure or fine are unusable words. And Tom will say it. Or that. Then I'll get embarrassed, and then I'll probably change because I feel embarrassed. So those words mean so much. They're so powerful. You know, we've talked about this before too, when Tom, have you ever seen Kevin James Kevin James stand up and he says, sweat the small stuff? It's hilarious. Tom's played it, I think, a couple years ago. He plays this part where Kevin James talks about men getting cards for their wives or significant others. And he walks down the aisle and he's reading, he said, he's reading it and he's like, oh, not this one. And he gets one out and he's looking at it and he's like, oh my gosh, that's how she is, so good. And he's, waving his face and he's reading it, and then he turns it over at the end and it's like $5.99. He's like, no, and he puts it back. And so I love cards because I'm a chatter. I love word. I love when Tom writes me like a sticky note, or whenever he says something to me or about me, or when he gets me a card. I want a card. You could get me a card over a diamond any day. Hands down, I know it sounds crazy, but that is the truth. I don't care about stuff, but words of affirmation is so important to me. So for years, when Tom and I were dating, we dated long distance for almost 3 years. And he would send me cards in the mail, and he would bring, I would get cards all the time. He would always bring me cards when he came to visit, and he brought flowers, because he would drive every weekend to see me about, 2.5, 3 hours away. And so I would get him cards too, thinking that he loved cards. Let me just tell you a little secret. Tom is counting in his head when he reads the cards. I don't even think he actually reads them. He looks at him, and he told me that he looks at him and he's consciously making faces, counts in his head, and then it's like, great. And then he instantly thinks, can I throw this in the trash now? Do I have to keep it? I have kept every card, every note, everything he's ever written me. Not so much him. So now we have this understanding. I still want cards. I want them. I don't even get them for him anymore. It's a present. We're like, here. And I keep, if the kids make him birthday cards or Father's Day cards, you know who keeps them? This girl. Does he care? He thinks the sentiment and the time is wonderful, but he's like, what am I going to do with that? Am I going to just read it in bed one night? Am I going to read it? I'm like, yeah, you might want to. When they're 57 years old and you're 80, you might want to read the kids' cards. He's like, really? Probably not. They probably won't. So I think words are incredibly powerful. The thing for me, and the reason I wanted to speak on it, words this week, is because they mean so much to me. Words mean probably more than anything else. And so I just want to go today and talk about words and what they do in your life. And the first point this morning is words are powerful. And it is one of the first verses in the Bible. It says, "Then God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw that the light was good. Then he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night." God could have done anything to create the world. Anything at all. He could have snapped his fingers. He could have done a spin. He could have blinked his eyes. He could have karate chopped the light and day. He could have kicked it. Anything. Think of all that he could have done. Anything to create the world. But what did he do? God said, he spoke. So the very beginning, the very first thing that God talks about is speaking. He spoke the world into existence. So if God spoke the world and he chose to speak something into existence, it must mean that words are incredibly important to him. I feel like God, he could have, think about it, he created the universe. He could have done the Bible in a different way. It could have been audio. It could have been pictures. It could have, I don't know, what else? How other movies, I guess. I mean, God could have done what he wanted he could have made movies right away. I picture I am reading the Old Testament, I'm reading the Bible and how it happened chronologically right now. And colander. What did he say? Colander. No, colander. That's what I'm going to call it now. I'm going to tell, hey, Tom, can you get the colander out from under the cupboard? So I picture things in movies. God could have done that, but he decided to leave who he is and the instructions for life in words. He left in words. They're insanely powerful. He could have done anything else, but he chose to do words. And how do we communicate? I know everybody says, your body language is important, and all those things are important, but Tom can think all he wants that he loves me. He can think it in his nice little head, but until he says it out loud, that makes it real. I know the song is one of my favorite songs. I'm not going to sing it to you. It's called More Than Words. Does anybody remember that song? Yes. Oh, it's so good. Tom made it for me on a mixtape. I actually just found it because we moved. It was a mixed CD. You're right. We were a little bit we were past the tapes. And the sad part is I don't even have a CD player at home to play it. So I guess I have to purchase one now. But I found it when we were moving, and I'm like, oh, More Than Words. Oh. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting a little nostalgic. So words are powerful. God spoke the world, everything that is, he spoke it into existence. So we know that words are powerful, but they can do two very different things. Words can bring death. And I think this is sort of the climate of our country at the moment. The Bible says in Proverbs 18:21, the tongue has the power of life and death. It has the power of both of those things. And in Proverbs 12:18, it says, the words of the reckless pierce like swords. Think about the world we live in today. When I was growing up, so we had MySpace, and that was kind of the end, high school. That was my junior and senior years when MySpace. When Tom and I were dating, we lived, far away, so we had to wait for the dial-up internet, and we had to wait to talk to each other till after 9 o'clock because it was free after 9 to just talk long distance. And I called him after 9 on his beeper, and then he called me back with our prepaid calling card. So yes, that was real. But now it's so different. I feel like now we are in information overload. And when we used to, in order for me to have a conversation with Tom or with my friends, we picked up the corded phone And I laid in the hallway because I stretched the corded phone all the way out down the hallway so my parents couldn't hear what I was talking about, all the way down by the bathroom when they were in the living room. And I actually spoke words to my boyfriend, my friends, whoever on the phone. We had to speak to each other. Well, now I'm realizing I have a daughter who's in 6th grade and in middle school, and their communication is, she's texting her friends on her iPad. They're typing these things in. And they're not talking to each other. And we are seeing now, there are teenagers who are committing suicide because of cyberbullying, because of words that are printed on a screen. We're seeing a new thing that I didn't have to deal with. When people got bullied at school, when I was in school, it was a punch in the face and it was over. Terrible, I'm not saying it was good, but that was the case. You beat somebody up, and then you could go home. But now, when you go home, there is words, these words, they're on a screen for everybody to see. We now live in a society where everybody can see what you say, and the unfortunate part is that there are no consequences really for the things that you say. Think about we have a new president as of Friday. Like him, not like him, think he's great, think he's awful. He's our president. And we have people, I almost don't even want to look at Facebook anymore because I can't handle the rhetoric. I cannot believe the people in my life, the things they are saying. The problem is there's no consequences for what people say. Think about it. When I had a conversation, when you and I have a conversation, I can't rewind the words that I say and re-say them. When I have to think about when I have an actual conversation, I have to think about the things I say before I say them to you. Now with social media, Twitter, Instagram, first of all, everybody thinks, the problem right now is everybody thinks that everybody needs to know what you're thinking. Please. First of all, I don't care what you had for dinner last night. Sometimes I'm like, ooh, I'd like to try and make that. But think about what we've created. We've now created this environment where everybody thinks that everything they think and say, everybody needs to know. We don't need to know. We don't need to know. And the problem now has become, we can say all of the ugly things that we should keep inside. We now say them. We type them out. Oh, I don't like how that looks. And we erase it. And then we craft this perfectly terrible, horrible, awful paragraph on Facebook. And we never see somebody's face. We never see how the words that we're typing, we never see how those words affect other people. And now you have family members who are no longer friends with you on Facebook, or aren't talking to you anymore, or you have friends that you've been friends with for life. You're not friends anymore because of posts on Facebook. Why? Because we've lost our ability to filter ourselves. We've lost our ability to keep our hurtful, awful words to ourselves. And then what happens? People post things. I'm going to post how I feel. No negative comments, please. That just makes me want to scream. I just want to write negative every time. Because you're posting something because you want people to see it, but you can't have a differing opinion. We don't know how to communicate anymore. We've lost all sense of communication. Studies are showing right now that people ages 17 to 25 are having insanely difficult times going into real-life job interviews. And they're saying because they don't know what to say. They don't know how to have a conversation without crafting this thing ahead of time. So now we've come to a place where there's no consequences, there's no remorse, and we are speaking negativity without even understanding the depths of who it affects. I think the difficult part now is people are just saying whatever they think, and they're not, there are some wretched people out there who intentionally try to hurt people's feelings and are intentionally trying to be divisive, but I also think there's those of us that maybe don't filter things and speak things without thinking about the consequences afterwards. We're not anymore thinking about what we say, or how we say it, or who we say it to. Because I love to chat, I have always just said all the things. And I'm emotional. So I say all the things that I feel, all of the things that, and by nature, I'm not a negative person. But how sometimes I feel like I have to work through things, I have to tell Tom everything. He has to hear all the things that are going on in my head. And the worst part is, I have to tell him all these things at night before bed. I can fall asleep anywhere. If you told me, 15-minute cat naps are like the greatest thing in the whole world. So I can fall asleep anywhere, and I can take literally, if you said to me, Beck, go ahead and take a nap, it would take me about a hot minute, and I would be asleep. Not Tom. It takes him forever to fall asleep. So all the things that are happening in my brain, all the thoughts that my mom talked about last week, all those things, you know what's happening? There's no children. I don't have to worry about work, and everything's quiet. And I can't handle quiet. So I'm like, babe, what about this? And I'm just, ugh. And I feel great afterwards. I'm like, this was great. I'm going to sleep. Good night. And Tom's like, hours later. I'm like, honey, are you still awake? He's like, yeah, I've been awake the whole time. So I have to learn to curb the things that I say because it makes me feel better. And then what happens is when I wake up and he's still awake, I feel bad, and then I feel guilty, and then I want to talk about, I'm sorry I talked about all those things. I don't really feel it, I feel better. And then I fall asleep, and Tom's still awake. So I'm having to learn to curb my words. And one thing I've really discovered, and one thing that's changed, I think, how I think about words, because I like to talk and because I'm expressive, I felt like that's how I have to deal with it. It's how I have to get things out. So I have always struggled with my personal appearance since high school. My senior year of high school, I struggled with gaining weight. And if you don't know, I'm very short. I'm like 5'1" on a good day. I'm real short, and I got my dad's genes. Both of my sisters and my mom are tall. My mom is almost 5'10". My shortest sister's 5'6", okay? So I'm a dwarf, pretty much. I'm a hobbit. When I was pregnant, I had nowhere to go. My husband let me wear horizontal wide stripes. We need to talk about that still. Noah's 8. I can't believe it. I found some pictures again this week of myself pregnant with Noah. I love stripes. It's so bad that I love them. And not vertical ones, horizontal ones. I love them. I shouldn't wear them. I just shouldn't, but I do. So I've always struggled with how I look, always. I've had to work really hard to maintain any sort of weight. I have fluctuated with weight. I'm short, and I gained a ton of weight with Noah, and he's 8, and I still have baby weight. He's 8. So, I've always struggled with it, and so how I communicate is I get it out with my husband. This morning I tried on, no joke, probably 15 shirts. 15. And so I said, Tom, are you there? He's like, where would I be? I've been here yes, I'm still here. I'm like, what do you think about this? And he's like, it's good. I'm like, not good enough. Don't tell me fine, or don't tell me sure. Tell me it's great. And so I've always struggled with that. I talk about it. Tom and I have great communication. We really do talk about everything. So what I didn't realize is that I have a 10 and 11-year-old. And my 10-year-old has heard me talk about how unattractive I feel, how overweight I feel, how I don't want to go out with friends sometimes because I don't feel good enough to be with them. I feel unattractive, and my 10-year-old heard me. So I was having a meltdown of epic proportions because, again, I'm emotional and I like to spew all the things out. So it was before Christmas, and it was just a bad day. Everybody has them. This one was particularly ugly cry. This wasn't going to turn out good. So I wipe my face off. Tom and I are talking in our room, and I go downstairs. My face is obviously puffy because I've been crying. And my daughter, Abby, 10, is insanely observant. That child is the most sensitive kid I've ever met in my life. She also does not have a filter. She definitely got that from her dad. She says whatever she thinks all the time. I'm a little nervous about her getting a little older because it's going to be sketchy, I think. So she is on the couch and she's crying. I was like, honey, what is wrong? And she said, Mommy, nothing's wrong. I'm like, don't lie to me, because now I'm crying because she's crying and we're both crying. And I said, what is wrong? And she's like, I can't believe you feel that way about yourself. I was like, so how much did you hear? And she's like, Mom, I have to tell you the truth. I was like, oh no, what? How much do you hear? Like, when do you hear? And she said, I hear you all the time. I hear all the things that you say about yourself. And I thought, oh my gosh, my words about me are not just affecting me. Now my 10-year-old hears them. And she said, Mommy, I have a little bit of a belly. I don't look like Kenzie. So if you feel that way about you, how do you feel about me? It was so sobering. It was awful. My daughter's fantastic. She's beautiful. She is exquisite in every way. And the words that I was speaking about myself in what I thought was a private moment with my husband repeatedly over and over again wasn't. And my child had been holding on to the things that I was saying about me. And she was internalizing those things at 10. The child has my body type, and she rules. But the words that I didn't even speak about her brought death into her life. The words we speak can bring death. Now, we tell our children, because words are important to me, daily, we love them. They're like, it's sickening, we know. Tom and I tell each other we love each other all the time, and I'm like, guys, I have a secret. They're like, it's not a secret anymore, you love Dad, great, can we watch a show? I'm like, well, yeah, but I just want you to remember that. But you know what stuck out to my kid that day? Not the 1,000 times that I tell her that she's beautiful and that she's awesome. What stuck out to her is that I don't feel good about me. And she thinks I'm beautiful, so what do I think about her? Your words can crush someone. It said, the words of the reckless pierce like swords. It pierced my kid that day. I can't ever take those words away. I cannot erase them on Facebook. I cannot do that. My child heard it. All I can do now is the next part. Words can bring life. I want to be a person that speaks life. How many of you know somebody that anytime you ask them how's their day, like, it's good, or it sucks, or you want to hear, oh gosh, it's terrible. What do you think about work? Oh, I hate everyone there. Or, was dinner good? Nah, it was too salty, or didn't have enough of this. Or, how many of you know someone that I think it may kill them if they said something nice? Oh gosh, they're exhausting to be around. You don't even want to ask any questions. You just don't want to know, right? And if you don't know somebody like that, it may be you. Just saying. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not saying there's anybody in here that could do such a thing, but words, you know how draining it is to be with people like that. It says, but a perverse tongue crushes the spirit. I feel like that moment when my daughter heard, I was crushed. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I felt like, oh my gosh, I need to run upstairs in the fetal position and tell Tom how I feel about everything. I felt like I hadn't learned a single thing in a second. That was my instinct, to run upstairs and just, ugh. But life. Your words can also bring life. So we talked about that awful person who everything's terrible all the time. You know them too. Like, it could be the greatest day on planet Earth, and they're like, well, it's cold in Siberia, so this is awful. I hate everything. Right? Proverbs 8:21 says, the tongue has the power of life and death. So we talked about death. Let's talk about life. Let's talk about what the better part is. Proverbs 12:18. But the tongue of the wise brings healing. There are people in your life that need healing. And in the Greek, it brings salve. You know aloe? My kids just discovered aloe for the first time. Shanzi gave us her name's Shawn, I'm sorry. I should have, it's not Shanzi, but that's what I call her, who led this morning. She gave us an aloe plant, and my kids were like, what is this thing? I'm like, well, first of all, it's a plant. Obviously, it's growing in dirt. It's a plant. And I said, guys, you can break it open. There's stuff inside that is soothing for your skin, like when you get a sunburn. And they were like, no way. I'm like, yes, let's do it. So now I found my son. First of all, I'm wondering why my poor aloe plant only has like 2 full things left. I'm like, Noah, because I know it's my son, because anytime he like when he puts chapstick, my kids have very like, their lips get like brittle and awful in the winter and bleed. So, but Noah just doesn't put chapstick on his lips. He like rubs it everywhere. So I was like, I need to go. Noah's awfully quiet. My aloe plant is freshly broken. What's going on? Well, he has the one whole thing, and he's fisting it like this, and he's squeezing it on his hand, and he's rubbing it on his face. Rubbing it. I was like, and so of course, the good mom that I am, I'm sneaky and I'm filming it. Outside the door. I'm like, this is awesome. So he's real quiet, and he's like dabbing it under his eyes. And he's rubbing it on his neck. He must have been secretly watching me at some point in all the face creams I'm dabbing on my eyes. And so I very quietly said, buddy. He goes, whoa! He's like, Mommy, don't do that. So I'm like, what, honey? I just said buddy. I'm like, what are you doing? He said, I'm smoothing my skin. I said, oh, good. I said, you're 8, your skin's pretty smooth. And I said, honey, you don't have a sunburn. He said, but you said it would be soothing. I'm like, you're right. I said that. Those are the words I said. I think that words, good words, healthy words, kind words, life-giving words are like that. Noah was like, it was like the greatest moment of his life. He's like, words are like that. Think about when Tom tells me, the wonderful thing about my husband is he knows that I struggle with how I look. 50 times a day the man tells me I'm beautiful. I need it, because if I'm a hot mess at 50 times a day, could you fathom what I would be like if he didn't say it ever? It would not be good. Kind words bring life, and they bring life into others. If you're in a relationship, I struggle so intensely when I hear couples tear each other down. When I hear people that are in love with each other, yes, she's my ball and chain, or, oh, he's such a jerk. He doesn't do anything for me. Well, I can promise you, if that's how you're talking all the time, you are speaking death into your relationship. It is killing it. I want my words to bring life to someone. When someone, a stranger, compliments you, doesn't it feel fantastic? Or when someone notices, ladies, when someone notices you got a haircut or notices something new about you, doesn't it feel amazing when someone notices and says it? It feels great because it's in us to want to have those life-giving words. Studies show that for every negative word, one negative word, it takes 5 positive words to change that emotion. 5. So if you only say one nice thing a day and you say 150 awful things a day, you are in big fat trouble. Life is going to feel like death to you. And you have to start speaking life over yourself. My mom talked about last week your thoughts and how you have to take captive of your thoughts. You have to take captive your words. You have to take captive your words. You know, I don't like being around someone have you guys ever seen the SNL sketch with Rachel Dratcher, Debbie Downer? Hands down, if you haven't seen it, you need to go home right after this or right after the service is over and look up Debbie Downer. It's awesome. They're at Disney, and she's like, every time she talks, they go, wah, wah. They're at Disney, the greatest place on earth, and she's finding something negative to say. Here's the thing, you want to be the person in everyone's life that is speaking life. If you're going to post something on Facebook, I'm going to challenge you. If you're going to post something on Facebook, could you be kind 5 times a day? 5? Or for the love of the Lord, if you can't do it, could you do it once? Try once a day. If you're going to speak at all, speak life. Speak life to yourself. I can no longer say you're fat and ugly and you shouldn't go out with your friends. I can't say those things because you know what's going to happen when I say those out loud? Guess what I'm going to feel? Fat and ugly, and I won't go out with my friends. But if I say, you know what? I'm a great friend. I love my husband. I love my kids. And I'm going to work on this weight thing. I feel better. I feel better about that side. Your words bring life or death. So we've talked they can bring life or death. So what do we do about it then? Number 1, if you can't say something helpful, shut it. I know it's if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. This is a little more precise. Just shut it. Don't say anything. If the words that are about to come out of your mouth are not going to help you or the people around you, shut it. There's not enough people in the world that will shut it. Even our president right now, I just want him to shut it. Stop putting things on Twitter. Just stop it. It's SNL's job to make fun of you. That is what they do. That is what they do. Forever. They make fun of everyone. Shut it. It's not helpful. Not helpful. Sometimes people don't need to know what you think. If it isn't helpful, if it isn't going to make the situation better, if it isn't going to be good, shh. I hate being shushed, by the way. Tom thinks it's hilarious. He's like, shh. I'm like, oh. First of all, I have that, as much as I like words and chatting, I think it's called, I don't know. There is a real word for it. It's a phobia with mouth sounds. Anybody heard of it? It's homina something phobia. It's where you get seriously angry at mouth sounds. Like when people chew really loud. I have to ask God to save me again. So that the angry thoughts, I'm not angry about really anything in life except for people's mouth sounds. So ridiculous when I say it out loud. It is a real thing. When my kids, I'm freaking out a little bit about now. When my kids eat chips at home, there has to be a TV on. There has to be noise because I'm like, guys, I love you, but get out of here. Eat chips in the basement. I can't go someplace else. I don't even know where I was going. Oh, shut it. Shut your mouth when you chew. That's what I want to say to them. Or don't chew loud. Or, I don't know, there's so many things about mouth noises that I hate. It's awful. Just shush, shut it. Don't say things that aren't going to help someone. Just don't say it. Have some self-control. Don't say things that are not going to help you. Don't say them. You can do it. That's the thing. Part of our problem is we don't have self-control. We don't reel it in ever. We don't just go. I do have to tell you something funny that my child said, though, since we're talking about the election. So we were talking, it was after the election, and this is my 10-year-old who, no filter. So my 10-year-old had read, we had the computer screen on, and it was, I don't know, there was news or whatever, and it was about Yale, I think it was Yale or Harvard, one of the two, not having finals because Trump got elected, and they were bringing puppies to soothe these adults. Okay, so my daughter read it, and she's like, excuse me, is this real? I said, it's real, Abby. What do you think of that? She's like, that's ridiculous. I didn't get any sleep last night, and I still have to take a spelling test. Puppies. No one's bringing me puppies. I said, we do have a puppy. Go cuddle the puppy over there before you have to take your spelling test. Part of the problem now is we don't have consequences for the things we say or do. Puppies. My 10-year-old realizes there should not be puppies in class in college. The problem is we don't shut it enough. Guys, here's the thing about life. Lots of times it's going to suck and it's not going to be what you want it to be. But we have to suck it up and keep moving forward. If what you're going to, because here's the truth. If you continue to bark about how terrible things are, it will be terrible. And it will not get any better. If you keep talking about how awful things are, they're going to be awful. It just is what it is. If you speak life, it could be and will be great. You get to choose. I love this. It says, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building up others according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. I want, for me, when my children, I still have time to repair the words, the death that I've spoken into my kids' lives. I want when my kids leave and when the people in my life think about me, I want them to think life. I want them to think and know that I have benefited them from the things that I have said. I don't want to be Debbie Downer. I don't want to be the person that is so negative all the time that people don't even ask anymore how your day's going, because they already know. So, number 2, if you think something good, say it. Say it. I often think wonderful things about lots of you, and I tell my husband all the time, and he's like, well, why don't you say it to them? And I'm like, I should do it more. I should say it more. Here's part of the problem. We have this thing, even in Christianity, we have this thing where we want to point out all of the negative all the time. You're doing this wrong, and you're doing that wrong, and let's get on our soapbox about this rule you're breaking. We miss it every time. God designed it for us to speak life. He spoke and humans were formed. He spoke and animals were formed. He spoke and it was day, and he spoke and it was night. He wants the words that come out of our mouth to be life-giving. Proverbs 16:24 says, gracious words are a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones. Don't you want to be gracious? Don't you want to give people a little space? Don't you want to think, dear God, if I was in the pits and the worst part of my life, do I want to hear someone yelling at me or pointing out all the extra flaws that I'm not already crying about? No, you want someone to lift you up. You want a hand. You want help. You want someone to speak life. Because gracious words are a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones. I love this. 1 Samuel says, because we talked a lot about speaking life into others. But 1 Samuel 36 says, but David encouraged himself in the Lord his God. He encouraged himself. Honestly, men, you might not fully understand us ladies, but there are 150,000 things going on in our head at the same time. I mean, it's like having 35 tabs open on your computer. That's a good day, by the way, 35. 35 tabs open, and we're all running and typing in all of those things, and we're working all of those things. And you poor guys are like, I got one open. This is great. Fine. But there's 34 other things that I've got going on right now. So I don't know where that thing is. There's so much happening going on. There's so much happening in this general region. Ladies, we have to do a better job of encouraging ourselves, giving ourselves a minute, speaking life into ourselves. When we look in the mirror, tell yourself the good things today. Tell yourself, start the day off right. I wake up in the morning and I'm like, Lord, I am not going to be anxious today. 7 minutes later, when I can't find socks, I am not going to be anxious today. We have to speak that, because here's the thing. When we speak it, we feel better. I don't care what you... When you do that, it's a biblical principle. When you speak life, it's salve. Start speaking life. Speak life into the relationships around you. This is one of the best. If you struggle with reading the Bible, if you don't know where to start, if you're like, this is all Chinese to me, I don't even know what's going on and what they're saying, this is foreign and weird, and I don't care about Deuteronomy and all of the thousands of, I don't care about that. You have to start in James. It's a short book, and it is about as straightforward as you can possibly get. It was absolutely written by a man, hands down. Just, this is how it is. Bam, do it. That's what it says. That's the crux of it. This is how you should live your life. Now do it. That's it. I just read James to you. So, James 3. Chapter 3, 3-5. This is one of my favorite. This pulls emotional, losing her mind Beck when she's way up here. This pulls me down halfway to earth, all right? Halfway. I need a little bit of coaxing down back to the planet. But it says in chapter 3, verse 3-5, we can make a large horse go wherever we want by means of a small bit in its mouth. Have you guys ever seen a horse? They're ginormous animals. Small bit in their mouth. We can make it go wherever we want. And a small rudder makes a huge ship turn wherever the pilot chooses to go. Even though the winds are strong, in the same way, the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. My favorite part of that, it says, wherever the pilot chooses to go. You and your words, your tongue, directs you where you are going to go. There's no way around it. There's no magic pills. There's no secret sauce. This is it. If you want to have a life that speaks life, if you want to have a life-giving life, this is it right here. It's the words that come out of.
You are listening listening to Rescue Community Church. For more information, check us out at www.rescue.cc.